My mother-in-law was standing in our nursery at 6:30 in the morning holding a onesie I had never seen before. When I realized she still had a key to our house, I froze in the doorway. I was wearing the oversized sweatshirt I'd slept in, my hair was a mess, and I had that specific kind of nausea that comes at 22 weeks pregnant when you've just rolled out of bed too fast. She didn't even turn around. She was humming. Like she belonged there. Like this was her room. "Oh, you're up," she said over her shoulder, finally noticing me. She held up the onesie, which was pale yellow with little ducks on it. "I picked this up at the consignment place near my house. Isn't it just precious?" I couldn't make any sound come out of my mouth. Not yet, because the thing is, I hadn't given her a key. I had specifically, deliberately not given her a key. My husband and I had talked about it back in the spring after the third miscarriage, when she had let herself in to drop off a casserole and ended up sitting on our couch for 4 hours while I cried in the bathroom upstairs and pretended I wasn't home. We had agreed, no key, and yet here she was at 6:30 in the morning, 4 months before our daughter was due, rearranging the changing table I hadn't even assembled yet. Let me back up. I'm a freelance graphic designer. I'm 31. My husband works as an electrical engineer at a defense contractor about 40 minutes outside the city. We met in college in Pittsburgh, got married 3 years later in a small ceremony at a vineyard in the Finger Lakes, and we'd been trying to have a baby for almost 4 years before it finally took. 3 losses. 1 ectopic that nearly killed me, 2 rounds of IVF that didn't work, and a third that did. My husband cried on the bathroom floor when I showed him the test. I had never seen him cry like that, not even at his father's funeral. We held each other for what felt like an hour, both of us scared to even say it out loud yet, like saying it would make it disappear. The first person we told after my sister was his mother. Her name is Diane. She's 63, divorced, lives about 25 minutes from us in a little ranch house she bought after her divorce settlement came through. She's a retired hospital administrator, and she has, for as long as I have known her, considered her son to be an extension of herself. I want to be fair here. Diane is not a monster. She makes a good lasagna. She remembers everyone's birthday. She has friends, she has hobbies. She does Pilates twice a week. To strangers, to neighbors, to her book club, she's lovely. But the moment my husband and I got engaged, something shifted. I don't think she ever intended to share him. I think she had spent so many years being his everything after the divorce, when he was 12 and his dad moved to Phoenix with a new girlfriend, that the idea of another woman taking up that role just didn't compute. She wasn't cruel about it. She was just always there, always calling, always commenting, always offering opinions on the apartment we rented, the house we eventually bought, the color we painted the dining room, the car I drove, the casserole dish I used at Thanksgiving. When we announced the pregnancy, she cried. Real tears. She hugged me and said, "Finally, I'm going to be a grandma." And I cried too, because I wanted to believe it was going to be good this time. I wanted her to be a grandma. I wanted my daughter to have a grandmother who loved her. But then it started. The first thing was the name. I'd had a name in my head since I was about 19 years old. If I ever had a daughter, I was going to name her Margaret after my grandmother on my mom's side, who basically raised me during the summers when my parents were both working 2 jobs. Maggie. That was always the plan. My husband loved it. He'd met my grandmother before she passed, and he knew what she meant to me. I told Diane the name about a week after we told her we were having a girl. She was sitting at our kitchen island, drinking the decaf I'd made her, and her face did this subtle thing where her mouth tightened and her eyes went a little flat, and then she smiled and said, "Oh, that's nice. It's a little old-fashioned, isn't it?" I said, "It was my grandmother's name." "I know, honey. I just mean, for a little girl in 2026. Maggie. It sounds like somebody's great aunt." I laughed it off. I told my husband about it later and he rolled his eyes and said, "She'll come around." She didn't come around. She didn't come around. She started sending me articles about popular baby names. Articles about how a child's name affects their career prospects. Articles about how certain old-fashioned names get teased in school. And then she started suggesting names. Always casually. Always wrapped in a story. You know, my mother's name was Eleanor. Such a pretty name. There was a little girl at the grocery store today named Charlotte, just darling. I always thought if I'd had a daughter I would have named her Vivienne. I ignored it. I'm good at ignoring things. 6 years of marriage will teach you that. The second thing was the nursery. We had decided, my husband and I, that we wanted the nursery to be soft and simple. Sage green walls. A white crib. A rocking chair from my mother that had been in our family for 60 years. We didn't want pink everywhere. We didn't want a theme. We wanted it to feel like a calm room where a small person could grow up. Diane had other ideas. She started showing up with things. A pink ceramic lamp shaped like a unicorn. A wall decal pack with butterflies and the word princess in cursive. A musical mobile that played Disney songs. A photo frame with Grandma's little angel engraved on it, already loaded with a stock photo of a baby that wasn't mine. Every time I said, "Oh, that's so thoughtful, but we're going with a different style," she would press her lips together and say, "Well, I'll just leave it here and you can use it or not." The garage filled up. I couldn't park in there anymore by July. My husband, to his credit, tried to talk to her. He called her one afternoon while I was at a prenatal appointment and asked her, gently, to please stop buying things without checking with us first. He told me about the conversation that night. He said she had cried. She had said, "I just want to be involved. I just want to feel like I matter to this baby." He felt terrible. He always felt terrible. He'd been managing her emotions since he was 12 years old, and the muscle for it was so developed at this point that he could barely feel when he was doing it. He just did it, automatically. The third thing, and this is the one that should have been the wake-up call, happened at 20 weeks. The anatomy scan. I'd been so nervous about that appointment. After everything we'd lost, every milestone felt like walking across a frozen lake. You don't trust the ice. You're sure it's gonna crack. And the anatomy scan is the big one. They check everything. The heart, the brain, the spine, the kidneys. My husband took the morning off. We drove to the imaging center together. We were quiet in the car, both of us holding our breath. We pulled into the parking lot, and Diane's car was already there. I'm not making this up. She was standing by the front doors of the imaging center in a turtleneck, and her good earrings, holding a small bouquet of pink carnations, waving at us as we pulled in. I looked at my husband. He looked at me. He had the same expression I had once seen on a deer that was about to get hit by a truck. "Did you tell her about this appointment?" I asked. "I mentioned it last weekend," he said. "I didn't tell her the time. I swear to God I didn't tell her the time. I swear to God I didn't tell her the time." But she knew. Of course she knew. I found out later she had called the imaging center pretending to be me, saying she had forgotten her appointment time and could they please remind her. I want you to sit with that for a second. She called my doctor's office, pretending to be me, to find out when my anatomy scan was, so she could show up uninvited and be in the room when we found out if our daughter was healthy. When we got out of the car, she came rushing over with the flowers, beaming. "I just couldn't wait," she said. "I had to be here. I had to see my granddaughter. I have rarely in my life been so close to losing it in public." I felt my hands shaking. My husband put his hand on my back, and I could feel his hand shaking too. He said, "Mom, you can't come in. This is a private appointment." Her face did the thing again. The flat thing. And then she said, "Oh, of course, I just thought, I thought I'd be welcome after everything." After everything what? I wanted to scream. After what? After 3 years of unsolicited advice? After the casseroles? After the unicorn lamp? We left her standing in the parking lot with her carnations. In the waiting room, my husband kept apologizing. I kept telling him it wasn't his fault. Neither of us was lying exactly. It wasn't his fault she was like this. But it was his fault he hadn't drawn a hard line years ago. And I think we both knew it. The scan was fine. Our daughter was healthy. 10 fingers, 10 toes, a strong heartbeat, perfect spine. We cried in the dim little room with the technician, and I felt, for the first time in years, like things might actually be okay. When we got out to the parking lot, the carnations were sitting on the hood of my husband's car. She had left them there. Like an offering. Or a threat. I couldn't decide which. That brings us to the morning in the nursery. 6:30 in the morning. Diane with the duck onesie. I finally found my voice. How did you get in? She turned, surprised, like she had genuinely forgotten I lived there. Oh, honey. I have the spare. From the time you had the flu last winter, remember? You gave it to me so I could drop off the soup. I had not given her a key. I had given her permission to use the lockbox on the back porch, which has a code that I changed every 2 weeks. But she had at some point taken the key out of the lockbox and never put it back. She had been letting herself in for months. She'd been letting herself in while I wasn't home, putting things in the nursery, organizing. The unicorn lamp had moved 3 times in 2 weeks, and I had thought I was losing my mind. You can't be here, I said. My voice came out flat. It's 6:30 in the morning. You can't just walk into our house. I was gonna make you breakfast, she said. You need to eat. The baby needs you to eat. Diane. I had never called her by her first name before. I'd always called her Mom, the way my husband called my mother. Mom, the word felt strange in my mouth. I need you to leave. She blinked at me. I'm sorry, did I do something wrong? I almost laughed. It came up in my throat like a hiccup. Did she do something wrong? She had broken into my house at dawn. She had been breaking into my house at dawn. She had been breaking into my house for weeks. She had impersonated me to my doctor's office, and she was standing in the room my husband and I had been trying to make sacred, holding a piece of clothing for a baby she had decided was hers. I went downstairs and called my husband at work. He came home in 40 minutes. He must have driven 90 the whole way. By the time he got there, she had made coffee and was sitting at our kitchen table drinking it, talking about her plans for a baby shower. I had not agreed to. He walked in. He didn't say hello. He set his keys down on the counter. He looked at his mother, and then he looked at me, and I watched something shift in his face that I had never seen before. He said, Mom, give me the key. She blinked. What? The house key. Give it to me. I don't have a... Mom. The key. Now. She fumbled in her purse for a long time. She made a show of it. She made a show of being confused, of being hurt, of being unable to find it. Eventually, she produced a key on a little brass ring with a charm shaped like a baby shoe attached to it, which she had apparently had made special, and she set it on the counter with great dignity. He picked it up. He put it in his pocket, then he said, We need to talk. And I want to tell you, I had been waiting 6.5 years to hear those 4 words come out of his mouth in that order, in that tone, directed at his mother. He sat down across from her at our kitchen table. I stood by the sink. I didn't sit. I needed to be standing for this. He said, I love you, Mom. I want you to know that. I have loved you my whole life and I will love you for the rest of it. But you have got to stop. She started to say something. He held up a hand. Let me finish, please. She closed her mouth. He said, When Dad left, you and I were a team. I know that. I remember that. I remember everything you did for me. I remember the 2 jobs. I remember the macaroni for dinner 6 nights a week. I remember you sitting up at the kitchen table doing my homework with me, when you were so tired you could barely see straight. I remember all of it. I will never not be grateful to you. She was tearing up. So was I, honestly, because I had heard him say a version of this to himself 100 times, as an excuse, as a reason to let her get away with things, as a shield. He kept going. But I'm 41 years old, I have a wife, I'm about to have a daughter. And the way you have been acting since we got pregnant, Mom, it's not okay. I have let it be okay, because I didn't know how to say no to you. I have never known how to say no to you. But I'm saying it now, she said. I just want to be a part of Mom. I'm not done. She closed her mouth again. You called my wife's doctor's office and pretended to be her. Do you understand how serious that is? That's not a quirky grandma thing. That's against the law. You committed fraud. She started to cry harder. You took a key out of our lockbox. You let yourself into our house, multiple times, while my pregnant wife was alone here. Do you know what that does to her, Mom? Do you know what it's like to feel like you can't relax in your own home because your mother-in-law might just walk in? I was crying too at this point. Quietly. I was holding the edge of the sink. You have brought things into our house that we asked you not to. You have ignored what we want for our daughter. You have decided that what you want matters more than what we want, and it doesn't, Mom. It doesn't, Mom. It doesn't. This is our baby. This is our house. This is our life. She said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean, I know you didn't mean. I believe you didn't mean. But the result is the same, Mom. The result is that my wife, who has lost 3 babies and almost died once, has been afraid to come home. The result is that the room we have been trying to set up for our daughter has become a room my wife is afraid to walk into. The result is that you are taking something from us. From your granddaughter. You are taking her parents' peace of mind. And we can't get that back. I had not been able to articulate it that clearly to myself. I had felt it, but I had not been able to say it, and hearing him say it out loud, to her with his voice steady and his eyes wet, I felt something inside me unclench that had been clenched for almost 4 years. He said, So here's how this is going to go. You're going to leave today. We are not going to see you for at least a month. During that month, you are going to find a therapist. I'm not joking, Mom. I'll send you a list. You're going to find someone and you're going to start doing the work. Because something is going on with you, and we both know it, and it's been going on a long time, probably since Dad left. And then, after a month, we'll talk. And if you can show us that you're working on it, we will start, slowly, to let you back in. You will see your granddaughter. You will be a grandma. We want that. We want that for her. But it's going to be on our terms, Mom. Not yours. Never again on your terms, Mom. Not yours. Never again on your terms. Do you understand? She nodded. She didn't argue. I think she was too stunned to argue. I think she had never in her entire life heard him speak to her this way. And the thing is, neither had I. She left. She gathered her things, slowly. She picked up the duck onesie from the kitchen counter where she had set it. She paused and then put it back down. She walked out. We watched her get in her car from the kitchen window. She sat there for a long time before she pulled out. She was crying. We could see her shoulders shaking. I felt bad. I want to be honest about that. I felt bad for her. She is a person, and she was suffering, and some part of her, the part she hadn't let see daylight in decades, knew what she had done and how badly she had done it. But I also felt, for the first time in my entire marriage, like my husband was standing next to me. Not between us, not above us, trying to manage. Next to me. After her car was gone, he turned to me. He looked exhausted. He looked like he had aged 5 years in 20 minutes. He said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I let it get this far. I went to him. I put my arms around him as well as I could with my belly between us. I said, we start now, okay? We start from now. He held me for a long time. He kept apologizing into my hair. I kept telling him it was okay. It wasn't entirely okay. It wasn't going to be entirely okay for a while. There was a lot of damage to undo. But it was the beginning of okay. We changed the locks that afternoon. He drove to the hardware store and bought new deadbolts for both doors, and he installed them himself before dinner. He changed the code on the lockbox and didn't tell her the new one. He blocked her on my phone, with my permission, so that when she called she would get him and only him. He took over all communication with her and he told her very clearly that any baby items she wanted to give us would go through him first, and anything that came to the house without our approval would go to Goodwill. The next morning, I walked into the nursery. I stood in the doorway and I looked at it, the sage green walls, the white crib, half assembled, my grandmother's rocking chair in the corner, draped with a blanket my mother had knit, the boxes of Diane's stuff still stacked against one wall. I started to cry. Not sad crying, the other kind, the kind where your body knows something before you do. I took every single thing she had brought into our house and I put it in the garage. The unicorn lamp, the butterfly decals, the princess wall stickers, the Disney mobile, the grandma's little angel picture frame, all of it. I made my husband help me, even though I could have done it myself, because I needed him to be part of it. He carried out the bigger stuff without saying a word. He looked grim, but he did it. Then I went to a little baby boutique downtown, a place I had been afraid to go to for months because every time I tried, Diane would somehow find out and show up to help. I bought a soft white knit blanket. I bought a tiny pair of moccasins. I bought a wooden mobile with little wooden birds. I bought it all by myself, slowly, taking my time. I cried in the store. The woman behind the counter, who was about my age and had a small belly herself, asked me if I was okay. I told her it was a long story. She didn't push. She just nodded and said, "Take your time, honey. Take all the time you need." I named our daughter Margaret. Maggie. She came 8 days early on a Tuesday in March. She has my eyes and my husband's chin and a head of dark hair that the nurses kept commenting on. She is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. Diane did not meet her for 3 weeks. We held the line. My husband held the line, which was harder for him than it had ever been because his mother sent him long emails and left him voicemails, and his sister called him and his aunt called him, and even his pastor called him. He listened to all of them and then he came home and he held our daughter and he said, "We're not changing our minds," and we didn't. She did find a therapist eventually. We know because she sent us a letter, an actual paper letter, written by hand in which she acknowledged what she had done in detail, without excuses. It was a hard letter to read. There were things in it I hadn't even named to myself. There were things in it she had done that I hadn't even known about. When she met Maggie for the first time, she came to our house at the time we had specified, with no gifts, with no opinions, with no agenda. She washed her hands. She sat in the rocking chair, the one from my grandmother. I put Maggie in her arms. She held her and she cried and she said, "Hello, Maggie," not Margaret. Maggie. That was almost 2 years ago now. Things are not perfect. They will probably never be perfect. There are still days when Diane slips and tries to take over, and there are still moments when my husband has to gently put her back in her lane. But she lets him do it now. She doesn't fight, she nods, and she apologizes, and she course corrects. The therapist has helped. I think also just the fact that she came so close to losing her son helped. Because she did. She came very, very close. And I think, somewhere in her, she finally understood that. People ask me sometimes if I forgave her. The honest answer is that forgiveness isn't really one moment. It's more like a long, slow letting go that you do every day in small ways. Some days I look at her holding my daughter, and I feel nothing but love for her because she's good with Maggie. She really is. And Maggie adores her. Some days I look at her and I remember the duck onesie and the unicorn lamp and the carnations on the hood of the car, and something tightens in me that I have to talk myself down from. But I think the thing I am most grateful for, more than the therapy or the apology or any of it, is what happened at the kitchen table that morning. Because for years I had been trying to do it alone. I had been trying to be the wife who held the line, the wife who set the boundaries, the wife who said no, and it had never worked because she wasn't my mother. She didn't have to listen to me. She listened to him. She only ever listened to him. He had to be the one to say it. And he finally was. So if you're in this situation, and I know some of you are because I get the messages, I want to tell you something. You can't be the one to do it. You can try, And you should try, and you should advocate for yourself. But the person who has the relationship with that parent is the one who has to draw the line. And until they do, nothing changes. Nothing. It took my husband 41 years to say it. I don't know how long it will take yours. I hope it doesn't take as long. I hope, if you're listening to this, that today is the day that you put down whatever you're holding and you walk into the other room and you say the thing you have been afraid to say. Because the day my husband finally said no to his mother was the day my marriage actually started. Not the wedding, not the honeymoon, not the first house, that morning, that kitchen table, that key on the counter. That's where it began. When I look back at those 4 years of trying, losing, trying again, and finally holding Maggie in my arms, I think the hardest lesson I had to learn was that silence is a choice. Every time Diane crossed a line and I let it slide because I didn't want to make a scene, I was making a choice. Every time Ryan apologized for his mother instead of confronting her, he was making a choice too. And those small, quiet choices stacked up, year after year, until they built the exact situation we ended up in. A woman with a key we never gave her, a nursery full of things we never wanted, a doctor's office breached by a phone call we didn't know about. None of that happened to us. It happened because of us, because we kept choosing comfort over honesty. I think about that a lot now, especially when I'm rocking Maggie to sleep in my grandmother's chair. The world doesn't reward us for being polite when something is wrong. It just keeps going, and the people who push will keep pushing until somebody pushes back. That's not cynicism. That's just how human beings work. And the people who love you the most are sometimes the ones who push the hardest, because they know you won't fight back the way a stranger would. What changed everything for us wasn't anger. Ryan didn't yell at his mother that morning. He didn't insult her or tear her down. He sat across from her and he told her the truth in the steadiest voice I've ever heard come out of him. And I realized then that real strength isn't loud. It isn't dramatic. It's the willingness to say the difficult thing to the person you love most, knowing it might hurt them, because the alternative is to keep hurting yourself and the people you're supposed to protect. I want Maggie to grow up knowing that. I want her to understand that being good doesn't mean being silent, that being kind doesn't mean letting people walk over you, that you can love someone and still tell them no. Those 3 things: the willingness to do what's right even when it's hard, the wisdom to see clearly when emotions are pulling at you, and the strength to hold the line once you've drawn it, are what I want her to carry through her life. Diane wasn't a villain. She was a woman who had never been told no by the one person whose opinion mattered to her, and so she had quietly built a world where no didn't exist. The damage she caused was real, but it wasn't malicious. It was the natural consequence of decades of avoidance, and the only thing that broke it was someone finally having the courage to be uncomfortable for her sake. That, I think, is what real love looks like. Not the love that protects people from hard truths, but the love that hands them one when they need it most.